Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm Coach, a mother of four, and potty talker, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in.
Welcome into another episode of the podcast, everybody. I think this is either our last episode of 2025, or maybe it's our first episode of 2026. I'm trying to rack my brain for exactly which day the first of the year. So this is it. The last day of 2025 is Wednesday, and that is when this podcast episode will be released. And if you're on my email list, you might not get an email about it until the first day of 2026, which is January 1st. And whenever you are listening to this, which might not be until weeks into 2026, or who knows, maybe there's somebody listening to this who it's like 2030 or something like that, and you're listening to this episode. Either way, whatever the case may be, Happy New Year, everybody. I hope that you are wrapping up your holiday season, if that's when you're listening to this, and sort of setting your sights onto the new year, and getting excited, maybe getting excited. The solstice is behind us. Some of the craziness of mad shopping and gift giving and partying and all of that stuff is behind us. And we're just kind of sailing into the new year. Hopefully bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, as they say, right? And today's episode is going to be short and sweet. You may be needing just a little infusion of mental wellness, some clarity, a little bit of a touchstone of reconnecting with self and self-awareness and stuff like that. And hopefully that's what this episode can be for you today. You know, when I started thinking about what do I want to do the New Year's Eve podcasts on, what I started thinking about was a conversation I had last year around this time, which was about New Year's resolutions and why you may or may not really benefit from them and things like that. And so I decided to go, like, I've started to realize that you can't avoid AI in this world, even if you're not planning on using AI. Like, I didn't ask ChatGPT anything about resolutions. I just put into Google New Year's resolutions versus intentions, because that was the thing that I have been sort of ruminating around, honestly, off and on for kind of long time, maybe like a year even. And here's what the AI overview that I didn't ask for said. New Year's resolutions are firm, often rigid promises to change specific behaviors, like lose 10 pounds, focusing on future outcomes, while intentions are flexible, values based aims about how to be or feel. Something like be more present, for example, focusing on the journey and inner state, making them more adaptable and less prone to the all or nothing failure cycle of traditional resolutions. Now, as much as it pains me to say this, that AI took the words right out of my mouth. And I really just love like maybe even making this shorter and sweeter and basically saying resolutions aim to fix something. Intentions are about cultivating something into the future, or something new into the world. So it's about looking at something in a more of a lens of abundance, maybe, versus the lens of problems and solving and fixing and things being broken or insufficient or lack. It's that real difference of this perspective of abundance or perspective of lack. And I really agree with that. And I think that's been the experience that a lot of people have had with New Year's resolutions or any sort of resolution, right? Um, a long time ago, I did a podcast episode where we talked a little bit about the Enneagram, and we talked about resolutions and sort of like intentions and accomplishment and things like that through the lens of the Enneagram. And one of the things I said is that for certain types, resolutions are kind of like doubling down on something that is actually worth moving away from or softening. And I would definitely say my type, the type 1, is one of those types. Resolutions are almost like redundant for me personally. Like if I set a resolution to do something, it's basically already done. But the other flip side of that is that I've already resolved constantly to do the things that I know that I want to do. So, like last year, this time of year, I actually sat down and tried to think of like what would be my New Year's resolution. And I literally couldn't think of anything. That's my confession for you all this week is this idea for me personally. Like, I literally can't set resolutions not because I can't follow through with them, but because my personality is so fixated on self improvement all the time that everything that I could think of that I want to, improve about myself, I'm already kind of actively working on. And when I was younger, I would have a hard time kind of saying that out loud and actually owning that to be the truth because it kind of feels like almost like shirking your responsibilities, which is a big no-no for me as an Ania type 1. Um, like, oh, you're probably just not looking hard enough. You're probably just letting yourself off the hook would be kind of like the mentality that I would have. But in the last couple of years, I've started to kind of embrace like, no, actually, like when something's really important to me, or I can recognize something that's not, living my values, I kind of take action on it right away. I don't need a milestone moment. I don't need the first of the year. I don't, do that. That's just how my personality works. So New Year's resolution is actually kind of hard for me to make because it's hard for me to identify something I'm not already working on. But it's also kind of redundant because, once I'm already working on something, it's a done deal. So that's an example of maybe the kind of personality type that's not going to benefit from uh, resolution for that reason. And then the other thing is that there's a lot of personality types where resolutions are counterproductive because they just become sort of this thing that we beat ourselves up with, which is definitely something that's possible for me as well as an Enia type 1. Very easy to kind of be too strong in my inner critic and put that all on myself. But lots of personality types that are like that. The ones that are coming to my mind right now are maybe like the 7 and the 9, two types that struggle a little bit with follow through or for very different reasons. Struggle a little bit with follow through, struggle a little bit with change, and struggle a little bit with discomfort. And those are things that when you make a resolution, once you actually try to follow through with that resolution, you come up against all of those things. You come up against change. You come up against discomfort. You come up against things like having to confront things that are painful or deal with things that aren't fun and things like that. And those are really, really challenging experiences for those two personality types. So in those kinds of situations, setting this resolution is you're almost really just setting up a torture chamber for yourself. And so I see that happen all the time, and so for me personally, I'm kind of like, yeah, if this many people struggle with resolutions, maybe this isn't the most maybe healthy or life affirming way for us to move forward with change or self growth and things like that. And so that kind of got me thinking a little bit about intentions instead of resolutions. And I have one last story to tell you to maybe inspire you on that. So one of my girlfriends, who actually is the chef for one of the retreat weekends this year, and was in 2025 as well. Her name's Kathy, and she's amazing. Um, she made a vision board for 2025. And one of the things she put on her vision board was just this beautiful picture. It just was like spoke to her. She didn't really mean anything specific, like, oh, this is what's going to happen to me in 2025. But it just, for whatever reason, like struck a chord with her. And it was a picture of somebody holding a giant bloom of a flower over their face. So it was almost like this person, but their face was a flower. And it was because they were holding up this big flower. And, that just was like an image that for whatever reason, it just struck a chord with her. So she put it on her vision board and it was really beautiful. And then, as 2025 progressed, I was able to open up a second set of dates for my retreat, which meant I needed a second chef. I actually asked a few other people before it dawned on me that Kathy would be perfect for it and that she might be open to doing it. And I asked Kathy, and she said yes. And she came, and she was my chef for one of the weekends for the retreat in 2025. She was incredible. I mean, I've never seen anybody bake as many magical things. You guys come on the retreat, you have to try her maple cookies if you know it's good for you. I never, it was like the most mapley deliciousness that I've ever put in my mouth. She made amazing food. She was an incredible chef. She was great. And when, we all were kind of going out and doing our excursions and stuff like that, she would walk around the neighborhood where our house is on the lake. And it's just so beautiful that time of year, fall colors and everything. Well, I have a neighbor, just maybe like 10 houses down from me, on the lake, who just for fun, this woman is a fascinating creature that I just have a lot of admiration for. She grows flowers all year long just because she loves to. And she has this little bench in front of her property where people in the neighborhood leave empty like mason jars, jelly jars, kinds of stuff like that. And when she cuts her flowers, she puts flowers out in those jars. And if you're walking by her house, you can just pick up, you know, any of the flowers that she's put out. And it's just this beautiful little thing. And it's sort of like spiraled in our neighborhood to be like everybody kind of doing nice things for everybody. So when we go fishing in the summertime, we bring her fish. And we did that a couple of years ago, and we went on not just getting flowers, but then another neighbor of ours gave us these like homemade cards that she made. And anyway, it's a beautiful, loving, like life affirming thing that exists in our neighborhood. And I love it. Well, Kathy came back from her walk one day on the retreat, and she had all these flowers, and she made a little video to like send to all of our mutual friends. And she's like, "You guys, you can't even believe how big this flower is. I just picked this up. I couldn't resist. It's the biggest bloom I've ever seen. And just to show you how big it is, I'm going to hold it in front of my face so you can see it covers my entire face." And she sent us this video. Didn't even realize until after she'd done the video that she had pictured that in her mind on her vision board back in January when she picked out that picture. And it's just such a fascinating, fun story of like the power of intention, the power of just like putting that in your mind. Like maybe if she hadn't seen that picture, or she hadn't, what for whatever reason hadn't spoken to her, she wouldn't have it like back in her subconscious to like recreate it on that video and send it to us or whatever. And how could she have ever known back when she picked that picture that it was something that was like tied to this really beautiful excursion that she was going to spend part of her year doing, that she had no idea was in store for her, but it just spoke to her. And so she just embraced it. And, it's like this kind of feedback loop of like, I saw this picture, so I recreated it in this video. And I saw this picture, and I didn't even realize that in my real life, it was going to be tied to this whole nother chapter or experience that was in store for me. And how open, that she was to both of those things. And just, when I make my vision board, if I ever do a vision board, it's very, very like concrete and, not super imaginative. Like if I put like a picture of Italy on there, it's because I'm planning to go to Italy. I don't really put things on my vision board that are just like, well, this is kind of cool and I like how it looks, so I'm just going to stick this on there. After listening to Kathy's message about that, she's like, "You guys, look at my vision board. You'll never believe it." Um, After listening to that story, I was like, gosh, she just put that on there just because it just kind of like struck a chord with her. Like she was just open to it. And she was like, well, this is kind of cool. And I think I'll just stick this in there. And I have no idea what it is or what it means or if it'll even turn into anything, but I just like it. That is so different than I am. And I've just been thinking about it for a really long time. I mean, think about it. I'm recording this episode in December. That happened back in October. And I still have been thinking about it and just like, I really like it. So my idea for myself in 2025 is to just kind of like not question things or have to like make any sort of like concrete linear explanation of things. Like if something speaks to me, if something just strikes a chord for me or I just like it, I'm just gonna kind of put that. It's like kind of like imagining that you're going through life with a basket on your arm and you're just like, I just like that. I'm just sticking it in my basket. Sometimes you go to the grocery store and you're like, well, I'm just in the mood for capers. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And then like 2 days later, you're like, you know what? Puttanesca sauce, that kind of thing, but like for your whole life. And is that something I'm going to really make a resolution about? Or like, I have to say yes to everything, or I have to like be open to everything or do everything that sounds interesting to me? Like, no, I'm not that black and white anymore in my life. There definitely are some areas where I still have some room for improvement on that. But in most, I could say for the most part, it's not a black and white thing. It's not a linear thing. And that's the whole point, right? Like can you imagine making a resolution about not being rigid? I'm going to make a rigid rule about how I'm not allowed to be rigid anymore. So if my intention is to just kind of like go with it and like embrace the things that are interesting and appealing to me, it seems almost like weird to like make that into a rigid, structured black and white rule for myself. But having this idea or this intention of like, you know what, I'm just going to kind of see what's in store for me and be open to it and not try to like explain it in advance or analyze it or anything like that. That's an intention that I can totally roll with. I don't need to beat myself up about it. I don't need to like force anything about it. And that's the whole point. So I wonder if any of these little synergies and ideas that I've talked about today are striking a chord with you. That idea about intention. I think we're getting a little bit close and circling around this idea of attraction and things like that, which is always like such a interesting. And I love having conversations about the law of attraction because most people have like a pretty strong opinion one way or the other about it, which means that becomes an amazing conversation. So I'm leaving that there for you to just kind of stew and brew and ruminate around in your heads today. Looking forward to all of the magical myriad of wonderment that awaits us in 2026. Some really fun things happening on the Ann Kaplan coaching side of things. I think you're going to be if you follow me or you interact with me outside of just listening to the podcast, you're going to start to maybe get an opportunity to see a whole new website launch, lots of new offerings that are coming. It's a little bit of a back end overhaul that's happening in my business that should do nothing other than up level and enhance your experience of me from the receiving end. But it's very exciting for me, even from a new website launch to new offerings, new opportunities to engage, and just easier sort of navigation of all of my online stuff, which I'm super excited about as well. You might notice me showing up differently in all the platforms that you engage with me, maybe social media, maybe the podcast even, just really embracing like the current iteration of my practice in a much more like intentional and claiming way. So that's exciting for me. It might not even be something you notice at all, but it'll be something that I notice and will feel really great and aligned for me. And more on that as time goes by. If you are listening to this podcast on the day it comes out, today is your last day to take advantage of all of the great offerings that I have been talking about all December long, which is taking advantage of 2025 pricing for the retreat in 2026. You have 2 different dates to choose from for that retreat. You can look at all of those details. I'll tell you a little bit about it right now. The theme this year for the retreat is connections. And what does that mean? Well, we're going to be looking at relationships, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with the people that are precious to you, your relationship with the world around you, and understanding how that self connection is something you can bring forward into your connections with other people. We're probably going to be exploring a little bit about the anatomy of peace. If you've ever heard of that book, it's amazing. We'll probably be also exploring really important concepts like codependency and boundaries and communication and all of those things in just really fun, enlivening ways. I have some really fun excursions planned for us this year, even more time in nature than usual, even more creativity than usual, just lots of things. Every year is an opportunity for me to be like, that was amazing. And this year I'm going to do it even better by doing X, Y, and Z. And you have 2 dates to choose from for that retreat, either October 8th through 12th or October 15th through 19th. And if you reach out to me before New Year's Eve, so before tonight, if you're listening to this day, the day it comes out, you can lock in the 2025 pricing for that retreat. And also don't forget that that holds for all of my offerings, not just the retreat. And for whatever offering you pick, coaching, couples coaching, one-on-one coaching, group coaching, corporate coaching, any kind of coaching, I'm offering $500 discount on all of that stuff just for the end of 2025. So how cool would it be if you actually were listening to this podcast the day it came out and you sent me a message that said, count me in. We don't have to hammer out all the details right this minute, but your message to me that tells me that you want to lock that in, that's all you need to do. And we'll figure out all the nuts and bolts in the new year. So have a great end of your year, a great transition and smooth start to the new year. And I will talk to you next year. Bye, everybody.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.